production in Germany looked iffy, orders data looks iffy, exports still look iffy, certainly not out of the woods, right?
Well, the data that came out of Germany for October for industrial production orders was indeed weak. So the start into Q4 was weak, which poses a downside to any optimistic forecast for Q4 growth, obviously. The trade data, I would argue, wasn't so bad. Imports growing strongly, that is a sign of strong domestic demand. And also, I think there is good signs that this was probably an October blip, probably post-election, actually, because the leading indicators like the iffy, like the PMIs, really turned up strongly in November. So November must have been a much stronger month. That raises hopes that into the end of the year we're going to see strong domestic-led growth, investment-led growth in Germany, and therefore a good quarter.
But the Q4 we see that the start was weak, and that seems to sit in line with the leading indicators to me.
Indeed, leading indicators did dip a little bit in October. They have been recovering strongly over the summer, but then there was a dip in October, which we attribute a bit to the elections, because ahead of the elections there had been all that noise about tax raises. If the centre-left comes to power, then the election results showed that the centre-left would have a big say in any new government. Now that we've had the coalition agreement, we know that there's not going to be any major tax increases. So that risk has dissipated, and I think that's going to help the economy.
Okay. Putting that aside, let's talk about politics in Italy. It looks like this confidence vote's going to be won today. What about 2014? What about the risks or indeed the opportunities of a new election? What's your take?
I think that's exactly the right question to ask. Is this a risk next year, or is it an opportunity? Obviously, with the centre-left changing leadership, with Matteo Renzi, the popular mayor of Florence, a centrist, a reform-oriented politician taking over, he's popular in the population. There is a risk that he withdraws his support for the government under Prime Minister Letta, which could lead to new elections. And given the experience that we had earlier this year, that could increase volatility, lead to a market reaction, a negative one, and keep the economy in a weak state and even in recession. On the other hand, a pro-reform, pro-European politician with big support in the population could get a mandate to impose more reforms, make Italy more competitive and get it faster out of the current doldrums. So it's also an opportunity. We think that ultimately they'll probably wait for another year, so Letta will have those 18 months that he wanted to see through the worst of the reforms, and then elections in 2015.